Hi, Gautam Kumar on the platonic solids. This is a small talk, so please stay back.
This will be a very elementary talk. I'll just deal with a few very simple proofs. Here, I'll be dealing with very few simple proofs, regarding the platonic solids. Before we actually talk about the platonic solids, we'll just look at solids in general. What's a polyhedron? A polyhedron is simply a three-dimensional solid with flat faces and straight edges. I'm not talking about curved edges or curved surfaces. And every time I refer to a polyhedron in this talk, I'll be referring to one which has no holes in it, like in a donut. And this one here is one such example of a polyhedron. We'll come back to this. This is a special kind of a polyhedron. And yeah, basically every polyhedron follows this particular relation. It's called the Euler relation, which relates the number of vertices, edges, and faces. It's simple. It's simply V minus E plus F. That is equal to 2. And I'll just give you an elementary proof as to how this is done. And this is completely accessible to even a 7th standard student. So suppose we start with a polyhedron. Okay, this proof applies to all polyhedra. Right now, say for example, we consider a cube. Now the first step involves simply taking off one of the faces up. Just take that off and spread the remaining onto a surface. And in doing so, I'll have reduced the number of faces by 1. I'll remember that. Okay, and see, even if I do that, I'll distort all the areas and angles, but the number of edges, faces, and the vertices don't change except for the number of faces, which goes down by 1. Now I'll simply triangulate that. The figure B, I'll simply triangulate it. Okay, just may fill it with triangles. And in doing so, see, every time I draw a line, I'll be increasing the number of edges by 1 and the number of faces by 1. And the number of vertices remain unchanged completely. So V minus E plus F, whatever its value be, remains the same even upon triangulation. After I triangulate, I'll start working from the borders first. I'll have two sorts of triangles. Ones which share simply one side with the external plane, and the others which share two sides. I could have any one of these. In this case, all of them turn out to be the first kind. In the first kind, simply get rid of that edge which is outside, which isn't shared with any other face. In doing so again, I'll decrease the number of edges by 1 and the number of faces by 1, and the number of vertices remain unchanged. V minus E plus F, whatever it is, still remains the same. And even in case 2 triangles, there I'll get rid of both those edges, both those 2 edges which are outside. I'll reduce the number of edges by 2, number of vertices by 1, and the number of faces by 1. V minus E plus F remains the same overall. Again, if I just simply continue to do this to this figure over here, I'll be ultimately left with a triangle for which V minus E plus F is simply 1. I'll have 3 edges, 3 vertices, and 1 face. 1 face is what remains. Therefore, for the original polyhedron I have, it's simply V minus E plus F is equal to 2. Done. That's the proof of this. Now it is from this fact that I'll prove that there are only 5 platonic solids. Now what are platonic solids? Platonic solids is simply the 3-dimensional analogues of regular polygons. Unfortunately or fortunately, there aren't infinitely many of those. There are just 5 of those, and that is what I said to prove here. And actually, the word platonic is is a misnomer. Even Pythagoras knew that there existed only 5 such solids. In fact, 1000 years before Plato was even born, there were sculptures of these solids found somewhere. So these should technically be called Pythagorean solids, but why we call them platonic solids comes from philosophy. So the proof is this: because the faces are all congruent polygons, let's assume that the number of sides of each polygon is n, small n, and the number of line segments that join in at each vertex, let that be r. Because it's a platonic solid, they'll be the same. Now what I do is, and V, E, F carry the usual meanings. Go to every face, count every edge. In doing so, I'll have simply counted the number NF. But remember, each edge is exactly shared by two sides, two faces. So I'll have counted each edge twice. So I have this equation, N into F is equal to 2 times E. Similarly, I'll go to every vertex and count the number of line segments that come out of it. Let that be R, and number of vertices is V. So I have R times V. Again, I'll have counted every edge twice. Yes? Yeah. So I have RV is equal to 2E again. I'll just use these values, express F and V in terms of E and plug them back in the Euler equation, and this is what I get. 2E by N plus 2E by R minus E is equal to 2. Or simply 1 by N plus 1 by R is equal to 1 by 2 plus 1 by E. Now this equation doesn't have many solutions. It just has, turns out it just has 5 solutions here. I'll need to just find out the appropriate values of N and R. Look at this. Because N is the number of sides of a polygon, it has to be greater than or equal to 3. Similarly, R also has to be greater than or equal to 3. Now suppose if both of them are simultaneously greater than 3, then the maximum value of the LHS there is half. What does that tell you? It tells you that both of them can't be simultaneously greater than 3. One of them has to be 3 at a time. So now suppose, you get it, right? One of them has to be 3. So say N is equal to, so say N is equal to 3. Just put that there and you will get this. 1 by R is equal to 1 by 6 plus 1 by E. Now this should tell you that R can't go beyond 6. Otherwise E will go negative, and that has no meaning to it. So R can be only 3, 4 or 5. Similarly, if R is equal to 3, the only values of N possible are 3, 4, 5. So see, I only have 5 pairs of N and R possible here, and those 5 correspond to the 5 Platonic solids that I just showed you. In fact, I haven't mentioned it here, but you should verify that E is an integer for each of these pairs. So I have these 3, 3, that's a tetrahedron. I have 3 triangles coming at a point. Octahedron, that's 3, 4. 3, 5 is icosahedron. 4, 3 is a cube, and 5, 3 is the dodecahedron. Wikipedia gives you a slight, slight variant of this proof. It's not a slight variant, sorry. It's pretty much different, but it's geometric in nature. What they say in Wikipedia is you have a vertex and you have line segments joining at that vertex, right? What he says is the sum of all these angles should be less than 360 degrees. Now, is that obvious? No, because I didn't find that obvious. Okay, I had to convince myself, but yes, yeah. So yeah, I mean Wikipedia, just states it in one sentence and says that the sum has to be less than 360 degrees. But there is a pretty simple proof. Say I draw a plane like this and project these angles onto that plane. Actually, project these. Let me speak in terms of vectors. So let each of these vectors be, say, n1 bar, and I have n2 bar here. All I'll do is simply project these vectors onto that plane. I'll have n1 cap, n1 prime, and n2 prime, say. Now, n1 dot n2 is going to be n1 prime plus a vector z bar, which is upwards like this, and this vector is a constant. This dot this, and note that this is always a positive quantity here, the modulus of z. So therefore, the cosine of this angle is greater than the cosine of the angle in the projected plane. Therefore, this angle has to be less than each of the projected angle. And because the sum of the projected angles is 360 degrees, I need to have each of these angles less than 360 degrees. I mean the sum of these angles to be less than 360 degrees. Now that leaves me with not many choices. if each sum of each is to be less than 360 degrees, then each individual angle should be less than 120 degrees, because at most at least 3 faces should meet at a vertex. So I can't have angles greater than 120 degrees there. Now what are the polygons I have? What are the choices I have? I have a triangle, a square, or a pentagon. Even a hexagon can't work. I'll have the sum will be 360 degrees in that case. I have only these cases. Now if it were a triangle, say, if the faces were triangles, then I can have what? Because each angle is 60 degrees, okay, I can have 3, 4, or 5 triangles meeting at a vertex, not more than that. And similarly, if it's a square, I can have how many? Yeah, just 3, because it's 90 degrees here and 94 is a 360. I can have just 3. And similarly for pentagon, I'll have only 3. And these are exactly what I have. These are exactly my 5 platonic solids. But in this case, you'll have to go further and verify if you can actually construct these or not. Yeah, actually, my presentation is really over here. But you know, my friend once said to me that when you don't know what else to speak and if your talk's too small, just put in a lot of pictures, you know, make people feel lost. They'll at least clap for you at the end. So this is the final table that I have. Now where do I see these? This is just, you know, these, that only 5 such solids existed, and people knew that for a long time. And Kepler was a romantic. He was a romantic scientist. He saw, you know, some sort of a cosmic significance that there are only 5 such things, and he proposed this model of the solar system. The outermost sphere that you see there, that's the sphere of Saturn, apparently. And then inside you have Jupiter, and the innermost sphere is, you know, replicated here. This is Mars, Earth, Venus, and Mercury. This was his model of the solar system. But unfortunately, it broke down when the 7th planet was found. He couldn't go any further with it. And in fact, you know, the ratios also kind of agreed. So that was a one boost to him. But then, you know, the data available to him was pretty much fuzzy. So you just can't believe that. And yes, it's not true, of course. And you know, Kepler was a real scientist. He actually gave it up when the 7th planet was found. And in mythology, we don't even know why they did this. In fact, the name platonic solid stuck because of this association that he did. He just associated, you know, tetrahedron with fire, octahedron with air, ether. Then there's terra is earth, aqua is water. And in fact, I even searched on website, you know, why did he do this? And there was a wiki entry here. I mean, it was a wiki answers entry. Somebody asked, why did Plato associate these? Somebody simply mentioned because he wanted to. There was no real answer to that there. And in nature, you'll see countless instances where, you know, these platonic solids are seen in nature. Almost many viruses that we know have icosahedral symmetry. Yeah, in fact, you see this. This is the AIDS virus. It's icosahedral in shape. And yeah, when I say icosahedral symmetry, you know, all those shapes could be obtained, you know, as by a stellation of the icosahedron or the dodecahedron. A stellation is simply extension of the faces, you know. Like for example, in the beginnings, this thing, yeah, I told you this is a very special kind, right? This is a stellated dodecahedron. All I did was extend the sides, extend the faces in the opposite direction till I actually found those pointy edges. I got this solid. I mean, if I cut those pointy edges out completely, I'll be left with a dodecahedron there. This belongs to a special class of polyhedra called the Kepler-Poinsot polyhedra. Yeah, this is the Pariacoto virus, adenovirus. All these viruses. This is a dodecahedral virus. I told you, right? I put in a lot of pictures. And yeah, this is an amazing book. You know, there is a book called Kunstformen der Natur. It's simply the art forms of nature by Ernst Haeckel. Just go through. I mean, all these plates are available on the internet. They're pretty beautiful pictures. At least if they don't mean anything to you, look at them. These are microscopic sea algae. They are found to be in, you know, icosahedral and dodecahedral shapes. Salt crystals. Salt crystals and pyrite crystals are found to be, naturally they occur in cubic crystals. That's because their lattices have cubic symmetry, so that's reflected in their natural existence. And in fact, pyrites is also found in octahedral crystals. Similarly, you have chrome alum, that's found in naturally in octahedral crystals. Diamond and carbon have tetrahedral this thing, and all materials of the kind CX4 also have tetrahedral symmetry. Yeah, and because they are all symmetric solids, they could all be used as dice. So instead of using 2 cubes, use 1 dodecahedron, and you can easily play your game of snakes and ladders. Then there's something called the Dymaxion map. Dymaxion map is a map invented by Buckminster Fuller. This was in an attempt to reduce the errors we make in a map. Usually when we actually talk of a map, it's of a projection. See, the Earth is actually a sphere, and you're projecting that onto a rectangular paper. How do you do that? That's called Mercator's projection. It's basically this: you take your paper, wrap that around the sphere, and just join the center of the Earth to the point you want to project, extend it wherever it meets your paper. That's your map there. I mean, you complete your map that way, and you can easily see what the flaw here is. I mean, if the point is very close to, say there are 2 points very close to the pole, if you extend them, they'll go farther apart. I mean, that completely violates your areas, and all of them, they get violated completely. And in fact, in Mercator's projection, you will see that Greenland is thrice as big compared to Brazil, when it's actually the other way around. This Dymaxion map, it actually reduces that sort of error. All you do is you project it onto a platonic solid, essentially. Dymaxion there simply means dynamic maximum tension. I don't know. Yeah. And yeah, there's something more that I would like to say. See, one prime motivation for doing this would be, you can always consider these platonic solids to be periodic tessellations of the spherical surface. That was one prime motivation. I mean, see, what is the tessellation? You have a plane surface, and you're supposed to fill that plane surface with a given polygon of a given shape. Okay, here it's pretty simple. All I do is take a concentric sphere, okay, inside or outside a platonic solid, and just project it outwards, and I'll get my spherical tessellation. That could have been the motivation for having actually gone to this Dymaxion map here. And I don't know if I just made a few notes. Yeah, I just wanted to speak of higher dimensional analogs. In 4 dimensions, you apparently have 6, and they are referred to as polytopes, regular polytopes in higher dimensions. In 4 dimensions, you have 6 such polyhedra, 6 such platonic solids. 5 of them are analogous to what we have in 3 dimensions, and 1 is something called the 24 cell. Better go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia's got lots of stuff in it. Then yeah, and in higher dimensions, in dimensions higher than 4, you just have 3 platonic solids. That's it. Thank you. Yeah, Wikipedia, Google, and this book that even Sir suggested, What is Mathematics? I mean, this used to be a classic earlier because people didn't have internet and all that. Now that we have everything in our hands, you don't even need this book, but still.
Alright, so that's it. I hope you had a good time. We'll be uploading these slides and possibly even videos, because CD people have been here and recorded the entire thing. So you can tell your friends who go home for Holi that they can always watch the videos. And happy Holi to all of you.